This is my emotional support waffle fry. So, hi guys, my name is Hannah. Assalamu alaikum. I am a PA. I work in urgent care, and this video is going to be a straight shooter. How did I get into PA school? What did I do to become a PA? Give me like a second to finish this. I'm sorry guys, this is gonna be unedited because I don't know how to edit. So, okay, we're done with the emotional support waffle fry. I decided on the PA track when I was 15 years old. I'm 28 years old now. This is awkward, someone's walking by the window. I'm 28 years old now. When I was looking into PA, it wasn't a thing. Is she coming in here? No. It wasn't a thing. A lot of people didn't know what a PA was. It was not as hyped up as it is now. It just so happened that one of my sister's friends was a PA. It was a good, it was a good career option at that time, and so my sisters encouraged me to pursue it. And I thought, hey, I like medicine. It's interesting to me. I've always really liked medicine. I've been that person that used to watch a show called The Untold Stories of the ER. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but I was always so interested. It was like, oh my God, how do these like physicians, it was mainly the doctors, but how do they go about figuring out what's wrong with this patient that's coming in with what seems to be a random collection of symptoms? And I always thought I want to be that person. I want to be that person who's investigating, who's asking the questions, who's, deciding what labs to run. I want to have the legal authority to do that. So starting off, I went to undergrad. I went straight into a university, and I initially started off as a biology major. Well, later on learned I hate biology. Not that I hate the courses that they make you take as a biology major, because it just felt like I was learning things that I was never going to apply. And so I decided during my second year, my sophomore year, I was going to switch over and do a degree that was much more applicable. So a lot of people ask me, what is a recommended degree? You can get any degree if you want to go into PA school, but for me, I did a nutrition and food science degree. I did a minor in health psychology. It was just something that was interesting to me, and I thought that it might also be a bit of a competitive advantage. So I started off with that. I did pretty well during undergrad. I was there on scholarship. I maintained a pretty high GPA. I don't remember exactly what my GPA is. Maybe if I remember, I'll put it in the description. But I mean, it was like 3.7 or above. I think my overall GPA was a 3.9 something, but my science GPA might have been a 3.7, 3.6, something along those lines. Finished the degree with honors. So that's one. 2, GRE, I took the GRE during my junior year. The GRE was what was required. There was no such thing as a PA CAT. How did I study for the GRE? I'll be very honest, I didn't study much. I think I just maybe a total of like a few hours of looking at the books. Then I realized I'm not very motivated to study. So I'm just gonna wing it. And I got, average to above average. I tend to do pretty well on standardized exams, so it wasn't something that was super alarming to me. For me, I was just like, as long as I got above the threshold, I think my GPA is gonna give me that advantage, and so I won't worry about it too much. The hardest part for me, oh my gosh, the most stressful part was getting my hours. My biggest advice to you is going to be start looking for your hours as soon as you make the decision to go into PA school. So obviously you can do a bunch of different things. You can be a medical assistant, you can, you can be a CNA, a phlebotomist, physical therapy assistant. There are a lot of different things to consider, but it was so hard for me to find a job at that time because a lot of people required a certain certification. So, and I applied for a bunch of like medical assistant jobs, and they, some were offering to train. What kept happening to me is I would get the interview and I would do really well on the interview, and then something kept happening to the human resources department. I don't know what's going on with the human resources department at that time, but all of the human resources, like the HR folks, they would quit, or like they just wouldn't call me back, and I'm like, come on, y'all leaving me hanging, and didn't tell the other person who was coming after you to call me back for an interview, and it was just very frustrating. Eventually I decided just to do a certified nurse assistant certification during my it was either this, I want to say the summer of junior year. I worked as a CNA for like 2 weeks and it was not for me. I could not, emotionally, I could not handle it. It was honestly extremely depressing. I hated going to work and I just decided like I can't push, it wasn't worth it to me. So I ended up quitting that job and I continued to look for other opportunities. Eventually, you know, I finished my degree and I had gotten a few hours, obviously, with this CNA job, but not what I needed. And I was able to work doing some medical assisting type work and qualify some of that as my hours. Shadowing. I shadowed a physician who was an emergency room physician. He was awesome. He was a mentor physician to me at that time. And I was able to really get a sense of like, do I actually like medicine by shadowing him? I want to say I shadowed him during my junior and senior year of undergrad. Shadowing is really important. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Really give yourself the opportunity to see if you could see yourself in that role. Because sometimes in our head, we think that we're going to be, it seems so cool and it seems so interesting. But then when you see the reality of like what that looks like, in day-to-day practice, you might find that it's actually not something you enjoy, right? You might not ever realize that as a PA, I'm doing a lot of documentation, right? There's a lot of, you know, behind the scenes, like insurance stuff you have to kind of know about and things that you wouldn't otherwise really think that we're doing. But if you're someone who's really bothered and annoyed by that, where you don't have a lot of patience for people, you're dealing with a lot of people's emotions, you have to be very like emotionally intelligent to be a good medical provider. You have to have a good, healthy sense of paranoia as well to be a good medical provider, to be a good PA, because if you miss something, it can be catastrophic, right? So if you're not someone who sees that as when you're shadowing or don't have the chance to see that, you might be setting yourself up for something that you kind of are disappointed in, which is why a lot of these schools require you to shadow before even accepting your application. So I did my shadowing. So we talked about undergrad, right? I got my degree, how I went about getting my hours thus far, and then shadowing GRE. The next thing I will talk about is I ended up taking a gap year. By the time it was my senior year, I still didn't have enough hours to apply. So I ended up taking a gap year. Take the gap year. If you need to take the gap year, don't beat yourself up about it. Don't make yourself feel like you're a failure because you ended up having to take a gap year. It happens. It is what it is. It's fine. You are not going to remember that gap year years from now when you're actually where you wanted to be. And honestly, I very much am thankful that I took the gap year because I felt like that was a year that I really matured a lot. I got to, you know, do things that I wouldn't have gotten to do if I just went straight into PA school. During that gap year, I got a job as a scribe. And that was just a really like lucky opportunity. You know, I was making a lot of dua, a lot of prayer. For those of you guys who are not Muslim, if you're watching this video, dua just means like prayer, praying to God. To help me in this situation, and this job opportunity landed right in front of me. It ended up being the most advantageous opportunity because as a PA now, because I was scribing, I was a scribe at a neurosurgery and spine surgery clinic, by the way. Because I was scribing, watching the surgeons make their like medical decisions, that was good exposure for me as a PA. Now when I have patients who have spine conditions and, you know, low back pain and things of that sort, I actually know how to manage it very well because I was the one typing the notes and watching, you know, the diagnostic process. So that was helpful. I did that for a year. I ended up, you know, applying to 10 schools. When CASPA finally opened up and I was ready to apply, I applied to 10 schools. I got interviews for 3 of those schools. I ended up going to 2 of them. The third one, by the time I had gotten accepted into school I wanted to go to, like I just didn't go to the third interview because I had already made my decision. But that's what my steps look like. What else? Let me think. Community service. I did a lot of community organizing in undergrad, like a lot. I was very, very committed to that. And I will say, quite frankly, I didn't do it for the sake of my application. I knew it would look nice on my application. I did it because I was passionate about it. I did it because I was very interested in it and I wanted to make an impact in my community. I still do community work till this day, right? It just looks different than what it looked like back then. It was a lot of faith-based community work as well. My community service was not in something related to medicine. I don't think it has to be. I think the point is if you're someone genuinely just doing it out of sincere care for your community, that's something that the application board or whoever is interviewing you is going to really appreciate. Yeah, so that was my journey to PA school that I can think of. Yeah, when I interviewed, I remember that the community service was something that they really zeroed in on, because I don't think they believed that I had done what I like, or had been involved in all these activities, plus, you know, maintaining the grade point average that I did. So I did get grilled on that during my interview. So make sure you are honest during your application, because don't be surprised if you end up getting an interview, they might grill you on these things and they're going to try to catch you in a lie, right? Because unfortunately people do lie on their application. So be really honest. Oh, letters of recommendation. I got my letters of recommendation from a PA who I'd known through community work, my mentor physician who I had shadowed, as well as one of the surgeons that I had worked with doing prescribing. They had done my letters of recommendation. I never got a chance to see them, so I don't really know what they said, but obviously it was good enough to get me 3 interviews, alhamdulillah. I ended up doing, I ended up doing a 3-year PA program. Most PA programs are 2 years. I did a part-time one. It was really nice to be able to do that. There aren't many schools that actually do this. If you are someone who wants to kind of work during PA school, or maybe you're a parent and you have kids or whatever it might be, keep an eye out to see if there may be any 3-year PA programs around you. It was really nice. It was still hard. It was definitely still a lot of information, but I appreciated the time that I had to be able to study, and I feel like I really got a good sense of medicine and benefited from that extra time. So I think that's really it. Yeah, that was my journey to PA school. If you have questions, put them in the comments section. If I remember, I'll like look at them and reply to them. And yeah, maybe, yeah. And if there are other topics you want related to this, feel free to drop them as suggestions, and I'll be happy, you know, while we're slow at work, to make these videos for you guys. Okay, assalamu alaikum. Bye.